Hello, my name is Kiriath, and today we are going to do a cheeky little range review for Chaos Daemons in Warhammer 40k, and we're starting with Tzeentch. Now this is part 1 of hopefully 4 videos covering this range, because I'm having the week off. And you know what, I didn't want to leave you guys without any videos for a full week, and also this range, whilst not massive, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on with Demons. There's quite a lot of like little details and fiddly gribbly bits to talk about, and so I thought what I'd do is do a compromise, do them all separately. So we've got Tzeentch, Slaanesh, Khorne, Nurgle, do those 4 different days, and they will be released every other day whilst I am away and unable to make any videos. So I thought that was a good sensible way to do it. And if it's not, if you don't like that idea, well, tough, it's too late. I can't do anything about it now because they've all been uploaded and set to go live every other day. So tough, I guess. Sorry. Smash that dislike button. Anyway, let's start off with this, the Lord of Change for Tzeentch, and of course the ultimate build, which is Chaos Fateweaver. Both excellent models. Both, I mean, I would put these probably, I would say these are like second to top in my list of greater demons that Games Workshop has made. They are fantastic models. The feathers on the wings for these both look so good, because they start out kind of uniform. By the time they get out towards like the very ends of the wings, you've got this weird wiggly pattern that makes it look like they're being viewed through heat haze kind of thing. I absolutely love that detail. They could have just done them all straight and it would have looked fine, but that extra bit of weird genuinely adds quite a lot to the silhouette of these. Now with the Lord of Change, you've got the little claws holding the little weird growths. With the Chaos Fateweaver, you've got like a little fur bit which comes out of the end of the wings. To be honest, I prefer the weirdness on the standard Lord of Change, but one thing that the standard Lord of Change doesn't have that Chaos Fateweaver does is that extremely screechy pair of heads, which I think look absolutely fantastic on this. Really, really good. Both of the, I mean, it's the same basic build for the most part. There's bits that are different, but you know, your core body is the same, the legs are the same, and the torso is the same, but yeah, I really like this. For a start, I think they've done a great job of making them significantly different whilst remaining mostly similar, if that makes sense, which it actually doesn't, thinking about it, but like the details on them really set them apart. The staff on Fateweaver is so instantly recognisable as something special. Also, the double heads as well do a huge amount to change the overall feel of the model. The stance is the same, the pose is essentially the same for both, but that change is massive in how you kind of take the model in. The little differences on the wings are just really nice as well. It works really well to differentiate the two. Honestly, they are just super solid. Both of them are really, really nicely done. I mean, these were what? Did these come out in 2016? Oh, it says in the URL 2016. I don't know if that's when they were actually released though. I can't remember the release date for these. But I feel like these I feel like these just haven't aged. They look just as good. You can see just a sheer amount of detail and just little bits all over. They just look great. They've done such a good job with them. Now, I will say, as we shift over to the Horus, the blue Horus and the pink Horus, my feeling for this range is actually kind of, it's pretty heavily split. Like, the Lord of Change and Chaos Fateweaver both look excellent. Really like those models a lot. At some point, I'd love to actually paint one of them. These guys, the blue Horus and the pink Horus, they are just not weird enough for me. And they don't, to my eye, these do not elicit the same response as that. Like, that looks too different from these. Now, these are, I think, older, but they're just not weird enough. They're just not creepy enough. They're fine, I guess, but they don't really inspire any sort of reaction out of me. When it comes to like Tzeentch, who's all about change and mutation, and you would think kind of abstract concepts, these just don't hit the mark, and they never have for me. The thing is, I'm sure there were older versions of these horrors that were a lot more like they're a lot more like overtly horror and a lot creepier. What these, for me, would need would be to just be a bit more out there, a bit more weird and bizarre. Instead of all of them having, like, conveniently, 2 legs, for instance, have, like, some tentacles on a few. There are different numbers of arms, which is nice on them, but the placement is roughly the same on them all. And it is a little bit unusual, it is a bit weird, but it's not scary weird. It's just kind of, I don't know, kind of goofy. I would really like them to have, like, multiple mouths and things opening all over the place. You know, eyes in weird places. Really turn up the fact that it's Tzeentch, the fact that there should be this kind of rampant change and mutation. They don't embody that at all, and they just don't do it for me. There's, like, little bits I like on all of them, but the thing is, the overall kind of feel of the model is just not there. Things like some of them having, like, the top half of a beak but not the bottom half. That's cool, but there's none of them that have the bottom half of a beak without the top. Little things like that, just things that are not quite random enough. These are too cartoony to be unsettling, and they're too uniform to really do it for me. Which is weird, because things like the Flamers, I really like. I think the Flamers look great because they are that bit more random and crazy and freaky. You have multiple heads and mouths and eyes pushing out of that central section, that central head, at least on 2 of them. The other one is, like, even more random. You've got teeth coming out of every orifice. Although they are uniform in the way that they've been, the way they've been designed, you've got the central body, you've got the 2 arms, then you've got multiple heads on top. There is still something more unsettling and otherworldly, and they're just creepier. They're just creepier, and they look that bit more threatening to me. That kind of multiple mouth thing is something that I'd love to see actually on the horrors themselves, more than is currently there. I mean, yes, you do have it kind of. On some of them there's, like, 2 rows of teeth, and you've got, like, 2 sets of eyes on that guy there. But you know what? It could be so much more. It could be a full head coming out of his mouth. It could be a full head coming out of his mouth, and his second mouth is coming out of a third mouth. It could not even have a mouth. It could be really weird, and the tongue could be coming out of a shoulder or something. It could just be that much more chaotic and random, and I know it's harder to sculpt stuff like that, and it makes it less uniform, and it would probably be a serious amount of hassle, but I would want something that's a bit closer to that. They're just not quite there. These, on the other hand, I really like. There is something just very unsettling about them. That kind of continual growth, as though it's kind of pushing forward, and new faces and eyes and mouths are appearing all the time. That's the kind of thing I really like. That's the idea of Tzeentch that kind of speaks to me more than anything else. Now, in terms of other things that I really like from these, admittedly, these are also quite uniform, right? The Screamers are quite uniform in terms of their design. There's not a huge amount of variation, but there is more to me in the way of kind of weird, interesting growths and stuff on these than there are on the Horrors, for instance. So yes, they do all have spikes, but one's got, like, a line of spines coming out of the top. The other one has got several jagged kind of outcroppings. The central one is got tentacles and some spines. There's some scales going on one that are really prominent. They're more kind of settled on the other, almost totally absent from the third. There's a nice amount of variation between each of these. The one on the right, the eyes are laid out kind of pretty symmetrically. In fact, that whole model is pretty kind of even on either side. There's nothing, like, glaringly completely different, which, if that was repeated across every single model, might get a bit old and it might look a bit weird. But the central one has got a massive outcropping of horn on one side and a much shorter one on the other. The eyes are not symmetrical. You've got 2 extra growths of them. It does have the spines going down the centre, but they're very small. They're like, the growth is really minimal, because you've got those tentacles that, again, are not quite lined up going down the centre of the Screamer. And then on the other side, you've got almost the same layout of eyes on either side, but not quite. One of them is just wrong. It's just not laid out the same way. And it's those little differences that I really like. I think with these, the shape of them, you could get away with making, like, surface features a lot more random, but there's something about their design that is just inherently more pleasing to me than the horrors. I will also say I've put some of these together. They're not terrible to put together. I've not put any horrors together, but these I found okay. They are getting on a little bit. The sprues aren't too bad, in fairness. I mean, it helps with the fact that the body is essentially like a complete. You just stick in the heads on, and you do have a nice bit of variety. I'd forgotten you got an extra head, actually. Yeah, there's a good amount of variety going on there. You can mix and match them a little bit. It's nice. I think it's a decent kit. But yeah, I do like the screamers. The screamers are cool. There's just, in fact, if you look down the bottom right there, then just the little differences in the size of the spines going down the center, kind of where the placement is. There's just nice little details. It's like the more you look, the more you find bits that on the surface seem the same, but actually there's just that nice bit of variation. Overall, a pretty good looking unit, I think. Now, in terms of good looking units, this I actually really like. The horrors, I think the horrors are made to look a bit less, not to my taste, by virtue of the fact they're stood next to a flamer and 2 screamers. In fact, is that an Exalted Flamer? I can't remember. You can buy the Exalted Flamer separately. But it's just so weird. It's so weird. This is what I love about some of the Tzeentch stuff. It's just like, that is a bizarre collection of shapes, and nothing quite matches anything else. They're kind of similar in concept, but not in execution. You've got all that fire and flame, and a bit of Dragon Force feed there. You've got all this kind of fire and flame going on. It's honestly a really, really cool model. It looks great. And yeah, that colour scheme on the flamer I actually like a little bit more, I think, although it's not quite as otherworldly having it be real fire. But then again, I suppose having it be kind of, I say real fire, it's not real fire, painted as though fire that is real. I think it does add an otherworldly element to it when it's like this. It's just such a mad contraption. It is a little bit two-dimensional in a way, the flames that come out, which is a bit of a shame. I feel like that's something they would do a lot better now, but it's not terrible. It's not terrible, and overall, it's a really cool looking unit. You have got the Herald, which I believe is the ultimate build for this, and yeah, because you get the Exalted Flamer with it, I think. Well, a Flamer. Anyway, this I really like. This is actually really cool. Mostly because the horror on the back has got like the option for the mask and the clothes, like the little robe, the hood kind of thing. I think that adds a lot to it. Also the scrolls that are on the side of the chariot. And actually that horror, the amount of weird tentacle bits coming off it, I don't know, that adds quite a bit to me. And in fact, you know what, I think that view, I think I prefer that build. The three books being open with scrolls kind of on the belt, another book in the hand. It looks really cool. It looks really cool. It's another one of those just really weird looking models that's got lots of fun little details. Yeah, I do prefer that mask though, I have to say. The fact that there's a big mouth opening one of the books is excellent, and also the eyes down the centre of that one. It just looks great. Speaking of which, the Changeling is one of my favourite models. Genuinely one of my favourite models. It's so cool. It's so weird. I love it. So the fact you've got the 3 arms on one side, the single arm on the other. I love the kind of asymmetry of that. I really like stuff that is. I prefer asymmetry to perfectly symmetrical. I think it just adds a bit of extra interest and detail. The pose is really nice. There is smoke coming out of the bottom of the robe, which kind of shows her, I don't know, hovering, but it's not overdone. It's not like massively overblown. It looks good. It looks good. The billowing robe as well is really nicely done. I think one of my favourite things is the concession to the 3 arms on one side, where the sleeve is. Like, it's baggy. It's big and it's baggy on the single arm, but it's just big enough for the 3 arms on the other. I like that a lot. Also, the staff is kind of understated for what this is. Like, that to me is not an overly complicated staff. It's a cool staff. You got the feathers and you got the snake coming out of the eye there, which is it looks nice, but it's not massively over complex, which I think is a good choice because the rest of the model is actually quite a lot to take in. I do have one of these waiting to be put together, and I just have never got round to it, and I feel like I should soon. I feel like I should. Also, that robe would take some nice smooth dry brushing really nicely. Yeah, it's just such a cool model. That massive gap under the hood, where there's just no hint of a face, is... I love that. I absolutely love it. I guess it's a bit cliche when it comes to doing that kind of hidden faces, but in this instance, I think it just works really, really well. And next up, we have the blue scribes. Now, this is an older one. I believe this is it resin? I'm sure it was resin. Yes, detailed resin miniatures atop a disc of Tzeentch. So probably not all that fun to put together, but it is kind of cool. In a way, it does completely highlight all my issues with the Horus. It just looks a bit too much just like a head with legs and arms, which is one of the reasons that I'm just not that keen on them. But the overall idea of it is really cool, and the disc having the eyes on the underside, I like that a lot. I mean, when you look at it, it's super creepy. It's super creepy. Also, the fact it's got gills. It's just a nice little detail that's on there. It's a really cool concept. It's a really cool idea. All the books piled up. I love stuff like that. I love kind of like the idea of there being so much, like, just so many books, so much paperwork, so much knowledge, that you've just got stacks and stacks of it. I really like that. It's a really fun little detail to put on stuff. Also, the fact he's throwing the horns on one hand is a nice touch as well. The extra long quills too. But yeah, I mean overall, it's a really fun model. I mean, yeah, just the detail in the books alone is really nice. I just love all that. I love it. It looks so good. We also have the Herald on disc, which again is an older one, another resin one, and you can tell. This one is there's parts of this that have aged really well. I will say also the way it's been painted is such a massive difference to everything else. They've gone really extreme on the highlights and the shadows on this one. It's been painted totally differently to the others. It does look good though. I mean, some of it's aged really well. I'd say the horror itself has aged pretty decently. The little kind of fire effects on the horns still look good. The hand is cool. That's aged pretty well. The screamer, well, the disc beneath, not so much. That looks a bit clumsy, a bit clunky. The detail doesn't feel as refined as on some of the newer stuff. But overall, it is a cool model. It is a cool model. I think I don't mind that horror so much. Well, Herald. Basically a horror. You get what I mean. The dagger is a nice touch as well. Do like the dagger. Finally, we've got the Exalted Flame of Tzeentch. Now, this is the one that you get off the chariot, which we had a look at before. Pretty much exactly the same as the normal flamers, I believe. What is the difference? Is it just that he's lower to the ground? It is, isn't it? Yes. That's it. That, and actually no, he's got fewer faces. Worth pointing that out, fewer faces on that flamer. Yeah, I think I prefer the non-exalted ones, honestly. I think I do, because they just look more creepy. That just looks like he's got a face coming out of a gobbo's face, which is, I don't know, it's just not quite as impactful for me. I mean, overall, there's some solid stuff in this range. I will say the Greater Demons they're by far the highlight. Although the Changeling is a solid runner-up to that. But there's just bits of it that aren't quite for me. And I don't think it's that they're objectively bad. That's not what I'm saying at all. In fact, I try and steer away from making any sort of claim like that in these range reviews, because it's subjective. All this stuff is subjective. When it comes to like the detail and the quality of the sculpts and all of that, there's no complaint to be had, I don't think. But for me, I have a very clear idea as to what a Tzeentch army would look like if I were to do one, and that kind of, that sort of feeds your own bias as to what you enjoy and what you don't. And I just don't feel like the chaos, the randomness, the The outright weird factor is there, for the horrors particularly. The rest of it, I think there are some really good models in there, but it's just not weird and creepy enough for me, for these guys. But then by contrast, you've got stuff like this, which is just, I mean, it's just brilliant. It just looks fantastic. It's so good. So a bit of a mixed bag. Bit of a mixed bag, but you know what? There's some really nice stuff in here. What do you reckon? Which is your favourite out of this lot? I mean, I'm assuming most of you will go with... I'm going to guess that most of you will say that Kairos Fate Weaver is your favourite. I'm just going to throw it out there. I'll be interested to see if I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click all the things. Patreon, video, subscribe, all that stuff. Click it if you like, don't click it if you don't want to. And as always, there's an affiliate link in the description for Element Games. You can use to support the channel if you would like. I leave it in your capable hands. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.